here, part of the Fantasy Cruncher Twitch network. I'm TheSeigeDFS. Today we are going to talk about avoiding making duplicate lineups in tournaments using lineup study. Obviously, if you're in a top-heavy tournament or any tournament in general, building a duplicate lineup is very, very bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of look at the common trends. I've got a few tournaments up from last night. A couple things we're going to look at. Kind of what the salary floor is to avoid duplicate lineups, no matter your ownership percentage. So, like, if you leave, if you leave 1,000 on the table, you won't duplicate. If you leave 900 on the table, 800, we'll explore that. We'll explore and we'll explore kind of what the ownership cap is to kind of avoid duplicating your lineup. So ownership cap is basically how much exposure is every player in your lineup. So, for example, this top lineup up here has 300 or 298.8%. If we added the ownership percentages up of every player in that lineup, it would add up to 298.8. So at what percentage can you avoid getting a duplicate lineup? All right, let's just kind of get started with this. Let's first start with the Manny Max. So let me just get all lineups, looking by ownership percentage, and we can see here. So at 300%, even leaving 700 on the table still got you duped. Just imagine for a minute, right? If you duped. Like, if you play the Manny Max and you win it, I put this in quotation marks, with 48 other people, you're not winning anything. Like, you just got to avoid the duplicate lineup. What was this lineup? I'm sure it was like Rozier, Russell, Kuzma, Jaren Jackson, Al Horford, LeBron, Boucher, Whiteside. So again, just like really standard chalky lineup here. Again here, 299. So I'm just going to keep scrolling. So the first time we get an unduped lineup here, it's got a ton of exposure, but it left 600 on the table. So that's the first time we see a non-duped lineup. 800, 700, 800, 600, 1,000. Playing two Rockets. Who'd you play? Macklemore and Westbrook, I guess? Westbrook, yeah. But again, you can just see it basically. If you're trying to avoid getting duped, like, you really gotta be leaving a lot of money on the table. But again, like, these are all lower percentage ownerships, right? So again, like, you can max out, but you just have to make sure you have an exposure cap at like 220. And chalk in NBA isn't the end of the world. Again, 4x. Like, we haven't found anyone who's hit for any real amount of money yet. And we started all the way down combined at like 30%. So again, like, some of these guys have chalky plays, but we're still looking for the first guy that did anything. We're closing in on 100%, and we've yet to find anyone who's done more than 4x their money. And we're scrolling. I mean, we could keep going for a while. It sure doesn't look like we're going to find anything anytime soon. But my point is simply that, for all the talk about how being contrarian in NBA is great, like, you got to eat some chalk. Duplicate here, 216, 190, 170. As you can see, all these guys had some pieces of chalk in their lineups that kind of hit for good in the Manny Max. Looks like the lowest I can see right now is like 140% ownership. Like, that's a lot of combined ownership. So this idea that you have to be all play 1% guys in NBA, at least on yesterday's slate, not true. Let's go find the Manny Max again. There it is. There's the Manny Max for Monday. Boom. All lineups. Again, we'll set dupes equal to 1, because that means you know what you're doing. And again, 195, 222, 227, 190, right? You're not seeing this 30%, 40% ownership. So again, right? Look, I mean, I can keep pulling up data, but it sure doesn't look like it's changing any. Let's update again. Pull up the Manny Max one more time. Set my dupes equal to 1. As soon as I can remember how to set it equal to 1. Boom. Okay. 170, 200, 220. My point's the same, right? Yeah, there's the random 50 here. Sure, you can do it. But how many other bricks are there around before you hit this? So my point is that you don't have to fade. I'm not saying fade all the chalk, right, to be unique. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, though, is that we have to figure, we can't play every piece of chalk, right? So if we look at what won this lineup a couple of days ago, it was unowned Rubio, unowned a couple other players, 8 chalk Embiid, 8 chalk McCollum, 8 chalk Boucher, and then played some contrarian plays around it. So instead of just saying like, oh, I'm going to play all the chalk or fade all the chalk, it really comes down to we have to find out what is the exact range of expected exposures do we want. That's going to help us create lineups that are more optimal to win tournaments. It's going to get us playing the correct amount of chalk. It's going to get us to play the correct amount of contrarian options. So, I'm looking at this right now, and, I'm looking at it, and, when I go plug in my model today, in using Fantasy Cruncher Pro, I'm going to go create a rule. Like, I can literally go into Fantasy Cruncher, and I'm going to show the expected ownerships just for, 20 seconds here, just to show you this. So I'm going to go to Advanced Options, right? And I can go to My Data, and I can literally, you could set a min-max of what ownership and max you're allowed to have per team. So, so far, right, we're just getting started. But let's just say I'm going to set it between 120, add a rule, and I'm going to then make my max. Well, we have to figure out what that max is still. We haven't figured out exactly what the correct ownership percentages are to be where you can be unique without having to worry about your salary cap, right? So it looks like once I start getting around 210, 215, really stop the duplicates for the most part here. Yeah, maybe it's more like 190, 180 for a cap, where I really stop duplicating it, because that's the same guy, right? Some of these are trains, so it looks like once I get to about 180, the duplicates really kind of stop. And again, we're not trying to make this we're trying to confine the rules so narrow. We can make it pretty wide all we want, right? So let's just say, for example, that you want to create a wider rule than I did. That's fine, right? If you go 100 to 200, you're still going to solve the duplicate problem, and you're not going to run into this issue where you're going to be like, oh my god, I'm getting no chalk plays now. What you're doing is just avoiding the duplicates, and then, within that natural range, it'll depend on slates, but you'll be fine.